So it's important to note that while we designed the helper to basically be like the hops helper, which is a lot more static in its interactions because it's not activating modals in the middle of its usage, the Boxcutter helper is definitely nothing like that. So even though you're able to basically set up modifiers and remove them on the fly and things like that, it's aimed to be done during the draw, and it's definitely not a modifier helper of sorts. It's more like an in-tool assistant for Boxcutter during the method of drawing, and also helping dealing with configurations pre-draw. So you may notice some strange things about it when you try to use it like a helper. Like for example, we can go in and we could toggle wedge easily. We can go in and play with the width. We can click through the various presets for wedge to basically get it to look exactly the way that we want. However, whenever we click things like bevel, there's either a chance that it's going to come up and we're not going to see any sort of interaction, because we need to actually mouse over to 3D view in order to trigger it, because a lot of these things are still connected to modals. And so on a technical level, these are things that you will need to take into consideration whenever you're using it. But for the most part, once you get used to the way that things are, you should definitely be able to use this thing at the speed of light. In fact, just being able to get in and just quickly remove things from a mesh is just one of my favorites. Being able to reverse bevel was one of our goals that we set out to do with this thing, to make it as streamlined as possible. You know, one of the questions I get the most is, how do you draw an end-on line? And so we aim to try to simplify it with this particular version of the helper, where basically users would see an icon representing cyclic that by checking it would actually change the name to say end-on line. We tried to solve it in the past by actually doing the same thing up here in the top bar. I don't know if users are aware that just by clicking this icon, you can toggle into end-on line. And just like that, you're drawing an end-on line. I can right click and pause at that last point. I can press D to bring up my MiniHelper and just expand to deal with my solidify in a more intimate fashion. If I want to extrude, I can either close this and rotate my view and press E, or if I'm using view extrude, I can just press E and move my mouse to cut through. But really at this point, you also have the ability to just drag the extrusion on the Z, which is why this is so emphasized. By being able to get in and deal with your dimension intimately, I'm hoping to add a additional level of control. Previously, we also had dimensions capable inside the previous helper, but they weren't as well emphasized. But just being able to go in here and choose, say, I want to be under center draw, and I want to change my dimensions to be 2 feet by 4 feet, and I want a depth of, say, 3 feet. And being able to type these things in should give users a level of control as far as getting particular dimensions whenever it comes to using Boxcutter with a degree of accuracy. However, whenever it comes to Booleans, of course, sometimes the mesh is more dictatorial of the result than it is you actually being precise with your measurements, especially if you're dealing with hot lines and things like that and you're using the wrong solver. But I just wanted to do a final note just talking about some of the nuances of the helper and how you can actually get the most out of it, because if you're, say, just drawing a shape and you decide to just go in and add an array, well, array is a modal operation. So you see that as I'm moving the mouse, the notification at the bottom is being updated because it's still reading my movements, meaning that I need to get into 3D view and actually just make some movements to get this actually situated. And then from there, I'm able to press tab and pause, press D, and go back in and actually adjust the distances more intimately. And then of course, radial array is now available as a button for you to toggle through, which is previously unavailable in Boxcutter, but definitely a sign that we are going to be expanding on radial array in the future. One of my favorite things about the array slider is that whenever you jump into radial array, we see that it is simplified for us to be able to just quickly get in and adjust our count, don't want to make swastikas, and also be able to adjust our distance on the fly. So just being able to get in and do these things without having to press a hotkey to trigger a modal interaction is definitely something of a step up, but we'll be improving this over and over in the future, and of course adding more sliders and deepening the lore. But we want this to be a central area for users to be able to get acquainted with everything that Boxcutter has to offer. Another slider of pertinence I want to talk about is the taper behavior, because typically when you want a wedge, you can just go under the shape settings and you can activate wedge. However, when it comes to dealing with taper, we actually look at taper more like a modifier, where you can set it up as a start state and then you would specify your settings, and you can even specify your persistence. So because of that, code-wise, it actually behaves a little bit differently than you would expect with taper, despite it actually being next to it. So that means that whenever you're drawing with taper, you could draw a shape, it'll taper, and then it's completed, right? And if you press D, we see that taper, the icon, is still enabled, but taper, the actual slider, is unavailable. And this means that we were previously on taper, but we're not tapering anymore. So if we click and drag and create a shape, we're not actually tapering this shape on the fly. And that's because taper actually has a behavior attached to it of persistence, where basically if you activate persistence on taper, whenever you click and drag and create a shape, it will have persistent taper across every shape. But typically with taper, at the time that we were designing it, we figured that you would only want to use taper for certain shapes and then from there revert back to a non-tapered shape, especially in the event that you are switching shapes over to say something like circle. You definitely don't want taper to persist there. But let's just jump back over to Box and activate taper, and we see that now we have the persistent taper icon checked, which means that if we set ourselves to 0.5 and we click and drag, we create a shape. If we click and drag again, we create another shape that's also tapered. We see that all these shapes that I'm drawing are just tapered, but if we press D and we go back in, we also see that the taper slider doesn't actually go away. So there were a few strange things about the helper that we found as we assembled it, because like I may have mentioned at the beginning, Boxcutter wasn't really optimized to be put together in such a fashion. However, I see now that the point has come that we should definitely try to unify everything in a way that every user should be able to have access to it without having to know about hotkeys or additional features or have to watch videos or go through documentation, and also present Boxcutter in an easy to digest method. Also, shape purity is in effect. What this means is that if you were to say draw a box, press D, and change over to a taper and a wedge, you are now drawing a wedge box. However, if you paid attention previously, you know that in order to get taper to persist, you have to click on persistent taper, and then you can draw a tapered box persistently. However, if you were to change shapes over to something like circle, we see that wedge and taper have went away. If we were to activate wedge and taper on circle and we jump over to Ngon, we see that those states have been reset. This is what I refer to as shape purity. Is to prevent you from drawing a wedge box and then accidentally drawing a wedge circle. So for example, you may want to draw a wedge box because that's what wedge was made for. However, if you were to just jump over to circle and actually draw a wedge circle, you'll find that wedge circles just don't actually look that good. I'm still wondering what we can do with wedge and circle in order to give it a happy ending. However, at this time, I'm just not pleased with the ability for wedge to generate Ovaltine circles inside of circles whenever we're wedging them. However, it is wedge doing what wedge is supposed to do. But when it comes to Boxcutter, our goal is to ensure that when you jump to a shape, it jumps to the specific version of that shape. So if you are in circle, you are in circle. If you jump from circle to Ngon, you are drawing a closed Ngon every time. That means that if you were to say draw an Ngon line, but you exit to go to circle, but you decide to go back to Ngon, you are once again drawing a closed Ngon, because Ngon is the specified shape that this icon is delegated to. Having subtypes actually jump to by default would result in a more jarring experience, especially if users aren't aware that there's toggles for toggling line and lasso off and on. So just letting you know that whenever you jump between shapes, they will be reset to their default states, and this is by design because we want Boxcutter to be a very focused and organized experience, especially whenever you're cycling through your shapes. Obviously, the best way to cycle through your shapes is to hold Alt and scroll, which is my favorite way to go through all the shapes that Boxcutter has to offer.